Listeners, I'm so excited to bring you my conversation with Chéla Gage. She was most recently the global, I'm going to read her title, Chief Inclusion and Diversity Officer at Starbucks, and a little company you may have heard of. And she's been the North America head of talent for Nissan and had senior people roles in many companies. Chéla is also a foster care kid. She grew up in foster care, and she is embarking on a new project to tell that story. I first heard her speak at the One Mind at Work Global Forum, and she shared how her experience growing up in foster care created her to be the leader she is. She mentioned her hypervigilance, her always scanning the environment for threats, as something actually that had really helped her in large corporate roles. In this episode, she shares at how, starting at age 7, she would enter a large group home and have to suss out who the influential adults were that she needed to know so that she could get adequate food and clothing and care, and how that carried forward in her career. It's a transcendent conversation, and I hope you'll like it. Okay, well, Chéla, it's great to have you. And I've seen you talk twice at the annual One Mind at Work Global Forum. You're a huge force in the workplace mental health field.
Thank you.
And I was so intrigued by your story, by your new podcast. And, obviously on this show, we talk about mental health, but also we talk a lot about how our childhoods influenced who we are now. But you said something that was really interesting in one of your interviews. You said that you felt like your story began before you were born.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Yeah. So the more I become aware of who I am as and all of my identities as a mom, a wife, a sister, cousin, friend, all of that, um, I'm aware of how much grace is needed and how much forgiveness is needed um in my identities. Like as a mother, I am flawed, there I want to spend 100% of my time with my kids, but I have to work. And then I also realized that as a mother, I struggle, and I've come to figure out that in my life, I grew up not knowing what a good mother looked like. I had what I call shadow mothers. I knew what a bad mother looked like. I knew what not to do. And so my story is impacted by my birth mother
Mm.
and the generational trauma that she dealt with. The fact that she is one of 9 and her birth mother had 3 different husbands, and her birth mother was one of 10. And coming from the deep South through um through the Great Migration and understanding all of that, and and when I do, then I give my birth mother some grace, and I give her like just some understanding, because my life was pretty traumatic, and it's because her life was traumatic as well.
Yeah. Um, can I ask you a very personal question?
I'm here for it.
Did you ever think about not becoming a mother?
I did. I did. And the my trauma affected my ability to be a mom. I was told um I had a miscarriage, and I was told that I was unable to. And so when my first son was born, it was like I was over the moon when we got pregnant again. And being a mom has been the best part of my life. It's allowed me to um parent younger Chayla, like, because
Mhm.
I didn't receive all of the love and appreciation and that I give my kids. And in seeing what I give them, I've been able to then replicate it and give it to myself.
Yeah. Yeah, like the reparenting.
Yeah, yeah.
But you have 3 kids. So
I
you
do.
obviously were like, "I'm gonna be a mom and I'm gonna have lots of kids."
I do. I love them. I They are my 3 boys, and they treat me like a queen. My husband did a fantastic job of raising these boys.
That's oh, I love it. I love it. I have 3 kids too, but I only have 2 boys, so
Oh, I love boys that ooh, don't I love other people's girls. Like, I will, like, shop and make up and do all the, like, auntie things with other people's girls and then so happily give them over so I don't have to have the girl attitude.
it's a lot. The girl drama is real. Um, and the boy thing is real though, you know? The boy thing is real, and, I mean, it's funny, this is not a show about parenting, but we can go here, like, with my teenagers who are both boys, I'm so emotional and so quick to like be able to all the therapy, right? Label my emotion and identify what I'm feeling and talk about it. And I've really tried to raise boys who are comfortable with their emotions, but they're still teenage boys and they are like, Mom, no, don't do this. We're not doing therapy, Mom.
See? My boys do the same thing. "Not today. I'm not
Yeah.
doing it." Yep.
Isn't
Yep.
that funny?
It's okay. I try and get them in other ways, and my boys they're not as open as my friends' girls are. It's
Yeah.
okay. It's okay.
They'll catch up.
Yeah, yeah.
So before we sort of dive into your story, because I would love to hear your story, I've met you and talking about your leadership, you've had huge jobs, big career at the world's largest companies. Um, you have talked a little bit about how your hypervigilance from
Mhm.
growing up in foster care has
Yeah.
shaped you at work and as a leader. I'd love you to talk about that and then maybe expand to, again, how your story has shaped you as a leader.
Yeah, yeah. You know, I always say, those of us who grew up in foster care, it's a superpower.
Mm,
And there are so many, um, there's the stigmatization of growing up in foster care. And I carry shame with that. And then there's the ability to see around corners. There's this knowing when something, like this something in my gut isn't, the ability to trust your gut, the ability to read the room, like that is something I meant because I've been in home after home and then figured out, okay, wait, who's the influencer of this house? And how do I get on their good side? And that's helped me as a leader. I've had to talk about belonging. Like, imagine being 7 years old, going into a group home. I mean, and group homes are huge, 300 kids. Um, and then figuring out um, where you fit in at 7, like figuring out who's going to feed you, like which leader is in charge of the food, which one is in charge of the clothes, who's going to get you to school, like, and then trying to figure out. So this is something else. When I was growing up, I grew up in the South, and this was around the time where it the paper bag test. And I am a dark skinned girl. And as a dark skinned girl, I had a little bit more trauma than my light skinned friends. And so even though I in foster care, is identity agnostic. We can all be in that situation. But if you were disabled, had a mental health, if you were unpretty, then your life wasn't easy in group home. And imagine trying to be that person and figuring out where you belong. And so as I enter into corporate America, I have all of that to bring. Like, I know. I know how to read a room. I could see around corners like that. I trust my gut. I've built my intuition. And in working for companies like Nissan, Raytheon, and Starbucks, they've all benefited from my hypervigilance and my anxiousness. I've had to figure out how to harness it
Mm-hmm.
and not be ashamed of it.
Mm-hmm. And I would assume also manage it so you're not always scanning for threats.
Yeah, I've had to life has taught me that. And my husband would often say, your leaders get so much more because of who you are. Um, and so it honestly, it didn't come until my late 30s where I figured out my anxiousness, where I was able to use my who I am, everything about me in the most positive way. It took a long time to figure that out.
Say more about that, actually. How you, yeah.
Like, I didn't always appreciate my hypervigilance. I didn't always like that feeling of something's going to happen and trying to figure out what it is. It stopped me from loving me and from using it in the best way that I could. When I remember I was working at Nissan and there was this white woman with gray hair, like almost purple hair. Like she had to like, but when she walked into the room, like everybody just stopped and paid attention to her. It was like this automatic. And I asked her, like, how do you own a room like that? And she was like, honey, in deep south, I can't do her accent otherwise, but she was like, honey, there is nobody in the world who is like me. There is nobody who has what I have. There is nobody who's been through what I've been through. And at that moment, like I've been through 10 different when I grew up in foster care, in the 10 years that I was in foster care, I lived with 6 different families and in 4 different group homes. I've lived in I've been almost homeless. And my mother was someone they used to call Lady of the Night. And I didn't appreciate any of that until this woman said, there's nobody who has been through what I have been through. And I offer that. To to hear pain as like purpose,
Mhm.
that was something I just hadn't considered. And after that moment, like I just I got a new swag. I got a new confidence. Yeah, like this it's it was like permission to fully be me.
Mhm.
And once I had that, it was unstoppable.
You got pretty far before that.
I did.
What what got you there? Like, what got you
Mm,
out?
yeah. Now that I have the podcast, 1 Million Fosters, I hear what I'm about to say so much. And every time I hear it, like it makes me ache for the person who says it. And so I know that this um, brings up, it's a trigger for some. But I grew up not wanting to be like anything I saw or anyone they said I would be. When my birth mother lives with schizophrenia, and when my brother was born, her first episode started when she was pregnant with him, not with me. So I saw her before her episodes and I saw how beautiful and how, amazing. But after her episodes, I saw how people treated her and I saw how addiction became her go-to versus medicine. And I didn't want to be like her. And then when I got into foster care, all I heard was the foster kids don't graduate high school. We end up in juvenile detention centers, or we end up homeless or incarcerated, back on the system. I didn't hear anything good about being a foster kid. And so I had the want, I knew I could be different than what the world thought of me. And that is what drove me. And I can't say that I always did the right things, or that I'm thinking about all of the therapy and all of the people who kind of were my unsaid mentors, because growing up in foster care, like, one of the things that I learned was how to emulate, how to replicate, how to copy. And so I did that up until my late 30s. I copied what people did well. I read every self-help book. Um, and but I didn't know how to take what they did well and bring it into my own, make it a part of, like, use their good and attach it to my good, instead of using their good only and not seeing me as good as well. And
Exactly.
so, my hypervigilance is what got me to where it got me. And I'm grateful that something allowed me to make that switch so that my hypervigilance didn't, because you can burn out on that,
Oh, it's
man. It was
exhausting. Yeah.
exhausting. Yeah, so exhausting.
It's so exhausting. When you think about the role that anxiety has played in your life, what do you think about that role?
Yeah, it's a good and a bad. For the good, it's kept me on my feet. It's like it's like it's kept me dancing. It's kept me aware. But there's the other part that doesn't let you put anything down. It doesn't let you, like, live in the moment, or realize the good. You're always looking for what's bad. And I've had to figure out that balance. Here's wh- and I have 3 boys, and what I love that they are all different pieces of me, and I see anxiety in them differently. And as a coach, I remember being told, as a coach, you can't go further than you would have. I mean, you can't ask your clients to go further than you would go. And I think that about that with my boys. I've seen anxiety in every freaking form. I feel like I've lived it in so many different ways. And when I see it come out in my kids now, in my head, I give it a heart instead of, like, I'm a very visual person. When I used to think of anxiety, I used to think of it like being wrapped in yourself, like, kind of like sitting on the floor, just in a bundle. That's what
Mhm.
anxiety used to make me think of. But now I see it as a heart, and I give it the grace that it needs, because it's real. Like, I give it a piece of us, because it just, otherwise you you end up you end up not liking a piece of yourself.
That's I love the heart. I love it. I think that my biggest wish for people is to understand that what we call negative emotions and what's wrong with us is a huge piece of who we are.
It's what's right with us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting to me that you focused on inclusion and belonging. But did you start out working in that field, or where did you start out in your corporate career?
Yeah, I started out as an executive recruiter. And um, so I would help organizations in Cupertino place talent. And then it became where, and I'm a Black woman. So a lot of my network in Cupertino became women and people of color. And this was recruiting for IT, finance, engineering, like difficult positions.
Mhm.
And I would place the talent, and then they'd call me like 2, 3 years later and wanna leave, and I was trying to figure out, like, why am I mean, I was a pretty good I can that's one thing, I can place people, I can find a match, like, I'm good at matching people and skills and companies, and I'm like, "I know I did a good job matching you." But what I realized is organizations, they didn't have talent management processes. So I would place diverse talent, but they didn't feel like they could grow or that they belonged. And so I became the diversity consultant. And it was, how do we build talent pipelines? How do we keep the talent here? How do we um, promote and promote based off of performance? And so it just became like, inclusion just became a part of what I did. And then as a recruiter, like, you see so much. I remember one of the companies I was oh, no, no. I was this was my own firm, and a it was a priest. I took a job for a church,
Hmm.
and I they were looking for an executive assistant in Oakland, California, and to me, Oakland was primarily, African American, Black, white. This church was in the middle of Hispanic community, and the manager was saying, or what he wanted was someone who could speak Spanish as well as commit and be a part of the community, because he wasn't. And that was one of my first indications of the qualifications and the person's innate skill are one and the same, right? Like, because someone like growing up Hispanic is what he wanted. He wanted some, and how do you say that in a job description? We wanted someone, right? Like, it's
Right,
not,
right.
you can't really say that. But when I found the individual, I she had just come out of a domestic violence relationship and was building a life for her and her 5 kids. I think about that placement more than I think about the CPA that I placed at JDS Uniphase, or more about that than the engineer I placed at Google, because I made an impact in her life, and she impacted the church. Like, the church was more beneficial because of her. So my experience in executive recruiting helped me see that there's more to the job. There's more that the person can bring the job than we actually put out on the paper. And that's what inclusion and belonging are all about.
Right,
And
and that
once you
the unspoken
Yeah,
intangibles of
yes,
who that
yes.
person is.
Yes, it's the chains, the links, it's everything that makes them who they are. And once you see that, and once you match that, like, you've just made that person and the company unstoppable. Yeah.
We make that change. As you know, companies are slow to change. And, you know, when people are different, for whatever reason, they're different, different from who, I don't even know, but when they're different, that can elicit a fear response
Yeah.
in people who hold power. You know, you and I recently were at the One Mind at Work Global Forum. We talked a lot about the stigma of mental illness, the stigma around people with serious mental illness.
Yeah.
I don't, is that changing? We see the huge DEIB backlash. Like, it seems to me we are becoming more fearful of difference. I don't know. Eh,
Yeah.
I don't know if
Yeah.
we're becoming more, or we're creating policies that make it harder.
It's really loud right now, isn't it? The 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 gap between inclusion and discrimination is it's here. Like, it's like we're on the verge of going backwards. When I was the COVID period, the time, the summer of 2020, after the death and murder of George Floyd, I saw so much fear and love and appreciation and um, frustration and just overall confusion. But I saw more people shift towards belonging and inclusion than I ever had in the 20 something years. Now, I remember there was one individual, and I was working at an aerospace company during this time, and this individual had been with the company for quite a long time. um, um, let's say 20 some odd years. This is a leader. And I was having a one-on-one conversation with him. And this is a guy who's like, do as I say, not as I do. Like, he was like, bang your hand on a fist type of guy. He was the like coming in my office and 4-letter words were a part of his vocabulary often.
Mm-hmm.
And I was having a one-on-one conversation with him about inclusion and belonging. And he just came out and said, my daughter just came out as gay. And then he said, what am I supposed to do with that? This is a man who's been with the org. And he asked me, this was like my second conversation with him. And the first was maybe through the hallways. And I asked him, how do you feel about her? And he said, I didn't know. I didn't know. I didn't know how to react. I didn't know what to say to make her feel as comfortable as she felt when she was a kid. I didn't know how to get that back. And I said, what's missing? And he said, what is there is fear. I said, this is the perfect opportunity for you to let go of that fear just by asking her what she needs. He came back to me a couple of weeks later, and his daughter took him to a Black Lives Matter march. And he came back to me, Morra, this was a whole different man. And he was like, I mean, we were able to create inclusion goals. Like he had a DEI task force on his team. And what changed it was someone he knew had gone through something traumatic. And now it took the fear of the unknown to something known. It took, it took, it took like giving something a name and a face. That's why I believe stories matter. That's why I created the podcast 1 Million Fosters, to help destigmatize how people see foster youth. That's why representation matters, because we need to see people like us every day.
Every day.
We need to hear stories so that we can we can be human and we can humanize what inclusion and belonging are. So I think we're in a period of time right now where people want to know how can they be better, and of they're afraid of they're afraid of doing anything wrong. They're also afraid of how they are going to be judged. I mean, we have a president right now who is like, DEI is not his thing. And so
That's the understatement.
yeah, the understatement of the year. Imagine if you are in a family that is all that way, all, you know, Trump way, and then you're like, how can I be me? They deserve for their stories to be heard. They deserve to see people like them, and everyone deserves to be seen for exactly who they are. And at one point, inclusion and diversity swung way to the left, where it was just about Blacks and LGBTQ. And now what I think people are seeing is, because of the ban against DEI, it's like inclusion impacts veterans, inclusion impacts disabled. And we're seeing it with immigration. It impacts the unseen as much as the seen. And I do think that we're on the point of educating people so that fear is no longer the main driver.
Main
I
driver.
think we're close. Yeah, I think we're actually having conversations now where it was, I remember 2, 3 years ago, I would have white men come into my office and say, DEI isn't for me. And I get it. Like at that time, it felt like DEI was really for Black and LGBTQ. And now I see white men saying, wait, my father was a veteran. What's happening? Or my nephew is autistic. Or I am, my wife recently impacted. So I see inclusion is actually, I mean, we're talking. And as long as we keep talking, then we'll say the right things. We just have to keep talking.
One thing that you pointed out though in your interaction with this man is that for some reason he felt safe enough with you, who
Yeah.
he didn't know you, he knew your
Yeah.
role,
Yeah.
to say, I'm scared, I don't know what to do. To me, that's the crucial moment. And the fact that
Yeah.
there was a skilled professional in your role who knew what to say back was important.
Yeah.
And if we
Yeah.
get rid of all those people, well, then what's going to happen?
I know. That's where so I remember when the work will continue.
Yeah.
Before there were chief diversity officers, there were senior managers responsible for HR and compliance. And those leaders, those individuals are still in their roles today. We may be changing the title, but the work will still continue. That leader knew he could trust me because I was vulnerable with who I was to the entire organization. And that's what we need. We need for leaders to be bold, to be vocal. We need leaders to be representatives of their communities. We need for leaders to be allies so that individuals who are questioning can say, I'm, I don't know what to do. And here's the thing. I don't think my title made any difference to that guy. I
Interesting.
think, yeah, it was because I was unarmed. I at this point in my career, when he met me, I knew exactly who I was. I am Chéla Gage, powerful individual, focused on bringing the best of talent to the best of their companies. And I knew that I know that I can hold people.
Yeah.
And he saw that. And
He
I think
felt it.
yeah, as long as we have leaders who are doing that, and what that means, it means that you have to be courageous. It means that you have to tell your whole freaking story. The part that is before you and the part that comes after you. I had one gentleman who told me, and this is recently, he immigrated from London. His whole family is here, and he's not from the States, but he's a white man. And he's like, if we allow for someone who is Hispanic to be taken away from our country, someone in my family could be taken as well.
Mm-hmm.
And like we're having the right conversations. We just need for that person who doesn't look like me to say the same thing.
Right. Right. So as we close here, like you've started the podcast. You've called it
Yeah.
1 million. That's a lot of.
Yeah.
Why did you call it 1 million fosters?
Because every year there's 350,000 foster youth every year. Some of us get adopted out. A lot emancipate out, meaning at 16 you are an adult. Uh, We
16,
got
not
kids.
18.
At 16. Imagine being on your own at 16,
Were you on your own
right?
at 16?
No, I had I was being prepared to be on my own. So you start taking classes at the age of 13 on on how to do a bank account, on how to um, apply for housing, on resources that are available to foster youth. When I turned 16, my birth mother's sister found us. And my birth mother had just had her third child. And luckily, my birth mother told my aunt, if you want one, you got to get all three. And so that was great for us. So I didn't emancipate out, but I was preparing to. And there are so many that I believe that there's numbers don't lie, and there's power in numbers. I want all of us fosters, to know that we are powerful. 1 million, there's more than 1 million of us out there that have gone through the foster care experience. And that number, to know that you are more than one of 1 million, because sometimes when I was in foster care, and although I was in some group homes, I felt really alone. And I want them to know, like, you're not alone, and you're so special. And if we do this as a group, if we try to get through life together as a sorority, a fraternity, if we lean on each other, then as 1 million fosters, we will thrive.
Bring visibility, I'm just thinking in the corporate world, to a story that isn't often heard in the corporate world.
Exactly.
But yet there
Yeah.
are probably plenty of people in the corporate world who are
Yes.
ashamed of that story.
There's so many people. I know when I tell my story, it frees me a little bit. And I wanted to create the podcast to create that freedom for them. But I also want them to know that you don't have to be president of the United States to be important. You can graduate with your 2-year degree and have triumph being homeless, or overcoming um, obstacles. Or one of the one foster that I recently talked to, like, we praised the fact that she is now in therapy. They don't give you therapy in foster care. And so like, to be 19 and finally start to get help or talk through, I mean, that's fucking awesome.
That's big. That's big.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, Chéla, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for creating this space and for being you. Your energy is just transcending. I loved meeting you, and I love getting to know more about you every day.
Feel the same?
Thank you. Thank you.